Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto had enough of Kakashi chunin exams. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by SAIYANWARRIOR200 and link in the description and support writer. Let's start the video. Looking on, Naruto's jaw trembled as he looked on at the sight before him. He watched on as two people unknown that he was watching them were talking. The pink-haired girl talking to the black-haired boy telling him how she loved him and wanted to be with him through everything, standing by his side, no matter where he went. Grabbing hold of him and hugging him as tears went down her face. He watched on as Sakura Haruno hugged Sasuke Uchiha, tears going down her face. His jaw trembled and his teeth clenched, gritting against each other as he looked on at the sight of the two. Looking on at them, the two unaware that he was there and seeing what was happening between them. He had gone to find Sakura to tell her how he truly felt about her and that he would do anything to make her happy. And now he saw her in the arms of the person he did not want her to be with. She should be in his arms. Was this a joke? A cruel, sick joke played by the heavens themselves? Did they get amused and a kick performing these right in front of him? As if they knew his feelings for the girl and they did this despite him. He did not want to believe what he saw was happening. He wanted to wake up right now and find himself in bed, and this all just to be a bad dream. But try as he might, Naruto found himself not waking up. This can't be, he said hoarsely as he looked on at them. Watching Sakura hugging Sasuke, telling him how much she loved him. Having enough of the sight before him which seemed as though to mock him, he turned and walked away, fury coursing through his veins. As he left, he was unaware of Sasuke knocking Sakura out and laying her on a bench and departing on his own. Naruto walked through Konoha, anger growing inside his body at what he just witnessed. Sasuke, he always got what he wanted in the end. He always had and always will get whatever he wanted no matter what. He knew he shouldn't really be surprised at it, but he had hoped, he had prayed that Sakura would come around and realize that he actually cared for her and would do anything for her no matter what. He loved her, he had showed her that he was more than what she thought he was and had always been beside her, encouraging her even when she felt like giving up. He wanted to be with her. Every time she fell to her knees, he would always rush to help her up. Every time she felt sad, he would do anything he could to make her smile. But of course, Sasuke gets whatever the hell he wants. Naruto said with a bitter smirk. No matter what it is, he'll always get it. He said angrily. And he's gotten Sakura as well. The girl that I wanted to be with and would have done anything to be with her. He said as rage burned inside him. A fire was growing inside of him, burning him up. He walked through the place, a scowl on his face that was growing with each passing second as his mind replayed what he saw. Her in his embrace, leaning on him for support. By now they were probably kissing each other and telling they love one another. Naruto's hands clenched into fists as he leapt up onto a rooftop and stared out across his home. This had always been a hobby of his, to go to the rooftops and look out across the village and his home. To see what was before him. But as he looked around now, he was feeling something that he hadn't felt before. When he looked out on the rooftops or from the monument, he would feel at peace, but now, sadness was in it after what he had saw happen back there. As he looked on watching them go about their lives, he noticed somebody walking. It was Shikamaru, his classmate. Naruto watched on as Shikamaru was walking, a bored look in his eyes, his hands lazily tucked in his pockets. But Naruto wasn't looking on at Shikamaru, he was looking on at what he had on that caught his attention. Shikamaru had a vest on, a green vest that symbolized him as a chunin of Konoha, as he had been selected to be promoted to the rank of it at the exams. A rank that should be his in Naruto's eyes. Shikamaru didn't deserve it. He hadn't won his match, he had given up for Pete's sake. He didn't even want to participate in the exams the entire time and was practically dragged and forced into competing in it by his mother and team. Naruto had defeated Neji when nobody ever thought he would and had written him off as having already lost. He had shocked everyone when he had done it, going against the odds. As well as defeating Gaara and saving them all. He was more than worthy of becoming chunin after what he had done. But of course, he had been denied it. Gotta make sure to keep the demon from getting power. No way would they let a monster such as himself be allowed to be chunin. He sniffled a bit as a tear went down his face. He had heard them, the remarks given to him behind his back when they believed he didn't hear it. How as a child when he would try to play with other kids, their parents would run up and yell at him and tell him to keep away from them. How at the academy, with the exception of Iruka, none of the instructors bothered to help him when he needed aid on problems or assignments. Iruka had helped him, but he was only one man and his time was limited with him as he could only do so much. It wasn't fair, none of it was. He had done everything that was asked of him. He always did the right thing. He always did what was best. He always tried to be his best. In the vain hope that someday perhaps they would accept and cheer him and that Sakura would like him back. They had grown to become friends, but he wanted more out of it. He wanted to go beyond the word of friend, much more. But none of that shit mattered, did it? He never got any rewards, he was never thanked, he never received gratitude. Nothing. Each time he walked away empty-handed no matter what he did. He looked over the Hidden Leaf village, his hand slowly shaking before balling into a fist. The look of sadness on his face had been transformed into that of fury. I saved them. I saved this place. All of them, all of their worthless miserable lives are still alive because of me. It's because of me this place is still standing. Naruto whispered, his voice turning into a growl as he looked on at the place. I should have let Gaara slaughter them all. He said, venom pouring in his voice as he looked on. They don't care. None of them care what I go through. What I do for them. They just think I'm a demon. A monster on a leash for them to use. When his damn brother came back, did they care about what would happen to me? That I would die if they got me? No, they only cared about him and having Tsunade brought back to save his ass. He said as nobody cared about his fate. Only Sasuke was the only thing that mattered. I'm leaving, I've had it. He said as he reached up and removed his hit I-8 and threw it to the ground. I'm done. His hit I-8 fell below, hitting the ground with a silent clang. Kakashi walked through the silent streets by himself. The masked Jonin sensei of Team 7 went through Konoha taking a stroll as he went. The shinobi looked up high at the moon, which was half full tonight. As he looked on, he suddenly heard footsteps that caught his attention, and bringing his head down, looked on and saw a figure. Naruto, he said as he looked on at the blonde-haired boy who was walking down the street before him. Naruto didn't say anything other than a brief nod of his head as he continued to walk. As he did, Kakashi noticed something that was missing on him. That which stuck out on him. Where is your hit I-8? Kakashi asked him, honestly surprised that he wasn't wearing it as his forehead was exposed. I felt like not wearing it for a change. Naruto said to him. Is there a new law put in place that I must always have it on? He asked, a sarcastic tone in his voice. Now if you excuse me, I have stuff to do. He said as he moved past him. Alright then, Kakashi said to him, dropping it. If you ever need anything, let me know if you've got anything you want to discuss. Actually, Naruto spoke up as he turned around. Now that you've mentioned it, there is something I need to discuss with you. He told the Jonin. I've got some questions that I should have asked you a long time ago. Oh? Kakashi said to him. Yeah, something that looking back I should have immediately asked you instead of not doing anything. He told him, and Kakashi wasn't liking the burning look in his eyes that was there. Okay then, ask away. For starters. Naruto began. Sensei, why wouldn't you check on me when Orochimaru put that seal on me in the Forest of Death, hindering me from using my chakra and putting me at a handicap? Sensei, why didn't you give me any info on Kiba's fighting style so I'd know how to dodge his attacks? Sensei, why didn't you tell me the importance of the Kage Bushin? Kakashi, when did you decide to hate me? He asked on and surprised Kakashi at his last question. I have never hated you, Naruto. What made you possibly think like that? Kakashi said, stunned that he would say that. You have a funny way of showing that you care about me then. Naruto told him. I will admit I've made some mistakes when it came to you, Naruto, and shouldn't have done so. Kakashi said to him. But I never had any intention of making you feel unwelcome or unappreciated. It's a bit late to say that, don't you think? Naruto responded to him, and Kakashi looked on at him. Come on, let's get some ramen, my treat. That will cheer you up. He said and turned to walk. Is that it? Naruto asked him, and Kakashi turned back around. That's all you think will settle things and make me feel better? A bowl of ramen? You seriously think that will somehow fix everything? Newsflash, Kakashi, I actually like other foods and want something else for a change instead of eating that all the time. He told him, gritting his teeth in anger. Naruto, what's gotten into you? Naruto growled loudly, remembering what he had just seen. It's Sasuke. He got whatever he wanted as usual. He got the love of Sakura. He said to him. I see, Kakashi said, understanding. I'm sorry, I know you greatly cared about her, Naruto. I love her. Naruto claimed to him. I've been in love with her since I first laid eyes on her when I was little. She's the one I want to be with, who I want to spend life together with, but Sasuke stole her away from me. As usual, he gets whatever he wants all the time. Kakashi looked on at him, seeing how hurt he was, what he had seen having broke his heart. There's other girls, you know, Naruto. Sakura's not the only one in the world. Like Am, Hinata, or even Ino. I'm sorry, but sometimes in life you don't get what you. Kakashi's lone eye widened at the rock chucked at him and turned his head, just dodging it. Next time I'm not missing. Naruto told him. Naruto, stop this now. Or what? I'm getting tired of this real quick, Naruto. Grow up and face what has happened instead of acting like a child throwing a tantrum. Kakashi said, voicing his displeasure. You'd never say that to the Uchiha, would you? Naruto responded to him. No, of course not. You and those other pricks gave him everything. All I ever hear is how much Sasuke suffers, all the pain Sasuke goes through, and how noble he is. If I have to listen to one more second of how bad his life is, I swear I'll cut off my own ears. You catered to his every whim no matter how outrageous it was, but if I even ask for a scrap of bread, I get treated like a leper by you and everyone else. If our positions were reversed right now with me with Sakura, no doubt you'd come and tell me to let Sasuke have Sakura just so he can be happy, wouldn't you? I've suffered far more than he ever has, thanks to that bastard Mizuki revealing to me about the Kyuubi and why I was ostracized this whole time, and not once did anyone try to help me. Some actually had the audacity to claim that it was him that defeated Gaara. No. It was me. I defeated Gaara. I saved Konoha. And not one single thanks did I get in return, not even from you. He accused him. Naruto wasn't holding anything back now, rage had overwhelmed him and he felt nothing but disdain. Disdain of all his surroundings and the entire world. It's been like this ever since my worthless deadbeat father, whoever he is, gave me away. Naruto, you know nothing at all about your father. I know he probably gave me to the yondaime for a bottle of cheap sake in exchange, probably because being a parent was beneath him. And my mother? She's nothing more than one of the whores in the red light district that worthless pervert frequents. Great Sanin alright, so great he'd rather spend his time peeping on girls young enough to be his granddaughter than help his student. I didn't ask for any of this, if I knew this was gonna be in store for me in life, maybe it would have been better if I was born dead. He said bitterly. How could you possibly say that? Kakashi exclaimed shocked that he would voice such thoughts. Oh, now you start showing concern for me for once? Naruto asked him feigning surprise. You're a terrible teacher, you've done nothing for me. He accused Kakashi, his body trembling. I once admired you, but now, all I see now is a pathetic fool who still cries over his daddy killing himself. Not once Kakashi, have you ever gone by your set of rules that you preach. For someone who talks about the importance of them, whenever it's time to put up, you come up short like you always have. I honestly don't know who between you and Jiraiya I have learned less from. You're nothing but dog shit the way I see it. You even went and claimed a move I created on my own in the exams was nothing more than a knockoff of Sasuke's, but when he stole Lee's move you praised him. My own move and you go and pull that stunt right in front of everyone else. The accused as angry tears welled up in his eyes remembering it, his first real move he had made all on his own when he fought Kiba and it was dismissed as nothing more than a cheap copy. I see now that listening to you will never help me get what I desire. And what do you desire? Kakashi asked looking on at him as he felt hate from his body. It wasn't the Kyuubi, no, it was Naruto's own rage radiating off of him. Everything. Naruto responded to him. Respect, power, prestige, love, I want it all. That which everyone else gets hand over fist without ever having to do anything to deserve it is what I want as well. Nobody is going to stand in the way of what I desire, I'll kill anyone who dares to try and stop me, even you. What would Sarutobi think of you acting like this? How could you sound so selfish? He didn't think anything of me when he was alive, did he? Naruto snapped back at him. He didn't do anything for me. Just gave me a rat-filled cesspool of an apartment. And maybe for once in my life, I should be selfish. After all, being selfish has worked pretty well for everyone else because apparently nice guys do finish dead last. Naruto, calm down, Kakashi said, trying to get through to him. I know you're upset over what's happened with Sasuke and Sakura, but acting this way is only going to make things worse. If you don't like how I'm acting, I got good news for you then, I'm leaving. Naruto said to him. Kakashi looked on at him and saw that this was no joke. I'm done, I'm tired of getting nothing in return. I've sacrificed everything and not once has things gone my way for a change. As long as I stay here I'll never achieve any of my dreams. Naruto, stop this. No. Naruto said back to him. I'm leaving and there's not a thing you can say to make me change my mind. You would honestly turn your back on Konoha? Of course not, Naruto answered him. It's hard to turn your back on someone when they did it to you first. He spat out with vile in his voice. I'm leaving, and on the day I do come back, I will kill whoever is Hokage at that time and take the title myself, even if by some chance it's you. Are you threatening Konoha? No, it's not a threat to them at all, it's a promise. Kakashi disappeared and reappeared beside him and jabbed him in the neck to render him unconscious. To his surprise Naruto only smiled. The one chance you had to prove me wrong and you blew it. He said before poofing in a cloud of smoke. At that Kakashi's eye widened as he realized what it meant. Naruto. He shouted, realizing he had been tricked and that Naruto was long gone. His hands and face pressed against the window of the parlor looking on as kids and parents were buying ice cream and sundaes. 6-year-old Naruto looked on. He looked on as he saw different flavors such as chocolate, strawberry, mint, banana splits, milkshakes and many more types of ice cream. His mouth hanged open as he looked on at what he saw as one family got a giant sundae that was almost as big as he was. He pulled out what little money he had from his pockets and he smiled as he looked on as he counted it. He had enough. he could go get some ice cream. He rushed to the door eager to go in and get some. But when the boy did, the owner walked over to it and flipped the sign to close and locked the door on him. He grasped the door handle and tried to pull it open, but it wouldn't budge no matter how hard he pulled. "Hey. Let me in," Naruto shouted as he tried to open the locked door. "I wanna buy ice cream." "We're closed. Get out of here," the owner shouted at him from inside. Naruto looked on at him and frowned as he still tried to get in. "You're not. You just gave them all some," he protested as he banged on the door. "It's my store and I decide when it's open or closed. Now get out of here or I'll call security on you for loitering around my store and trying to break in," the owner shouted at him. The young child looked on at him, hurt in his eyes over how mean he was. Dejected, he turned and walked away. As he walked, he saw out of the corner of his eye the man unlock the door and change the sign to open, which only hurt him even more. He sadly walked on, and when he looked on at shops and stores, many would glare at him if he came too close or put up close signs to deter him away from it. Parents would pull their children close to them as they walked past him. He continued to walk, and a sniffle escaped him. He tried to hide it, but his throat was hurting in his attempt, and sobs started to come out of him. By the time he reached home, he was openly crying as tears went down his face over what had happened. He turned the knob, getting ready to go in, when he felt a hand tap him on the shoulder. He turned and was surprised to see a sherbet popsicle in front of his face. "Here," the person who carried said cone said, and it was a pink-haired girl his age with a ribbon in her hair. "I got you this since you didn't get any," she said as she had a strawberry popsicle in her other hand. Naruto, stunned at her kindness, reached out and took it. "Don't worry, I didn't tell him who I was getting it for," the little girl said with a smile. Thank you," Naruto said as he sniffed and took the offered popsicle she had got him. The pink-haired girl said and turned and walked off, sucking on her popsicle. Naruto watched her go, and a smile adorned his tear-ridden face. That was the first time that Naruto Uzumaki meet Sakura Haruno. And the day he fell in love with her. Naruto continued to walk. He had been walking for hours all through the night as he went on, as it was now day, ignoring that his feet were now sore, but paid them no attention. A bitter look on his face. He didn't care where he was going or even looked at where he was at, only going wherever his body was leading him. Once he had snuck out, he knew before he stepped foot outside that this would be the last time he would ever be in Konoha, that there was no going back from this path. But Naruto had not even turned back to look once. He had made his decision. Sasuke, it was always about Sasuke. He was the only one in Konoha who apparently mattered. Hell, he doubted they even tried to send anyone after him. Once Kakashi saw that it was a Bushin, he probably just dropped it and pretended he only had one student as always. But it wouldn't have done them any good even if they had sent anyone. If he didn't want to be found, then Naruto wasn't going to be found by anybody, plain and simple. That was actually the one skill as a ninja that he excelled at. The reason he wore this orange getup anyway was to challenge himself at stealth whilst wearing a bright loud color that anyone would notice. He had done everything right, he had bore this burden and the angry glares aimed at him. Even when he found out just why they did so, he chose to continue on with a smile on his face. Never complaining about it, always smiling. In return, things would turn out right one day and he'd be rewarded. That's how things were supposed to go. But one can only carry the burden for so long before it becomes too heavy and you can only keep on smiling. He wasn't wearing a mask or having a facade to hide his true nature. He didn't pretend to be happy all the time whilst in private whined and wanked about how things weren't going his way and cut his wrists. He had always been an optimistic boy who thought that things would turn out right and see the best things life had to offer. But after what he had witnessed last night, it seemed as though that part of him had died. Now, only hate was left. He hated them for what they had done and how they had treated and alienated him. He was always the one who was left out, the one excluded from events. What he hated most of all was that he had to suffer just for them. Sacrificing one life to save thousands sounds noble in theory, but they failed to pay attention to the fact of how the one life who was sacrificed would be affected by it. They ruined his life just to save their own hides. He hated Sarutobi, the fact that he did nothing for him, barely what you would call the minimum. Even telling him to his face when he was just 7 years old when he asked about his parents that it was stupid to ask and it won't bring them back. He hated Kakashi over his favoritism and attitude that he had pulled. Naruto remembered their final meeting, showing how two-faced he really was regarding him and his prized pupil. He hated Jiraiya for promising to train him and then doing nothing the whole time while he lusted after girls and wrote that trash he called a novel. Had he ever even laid with a woman? Naruto had wondered after he had read whatever it was that he called writing. He didn't win because of training with him, the reason he defeated Neji was because of his own merit and ability. He hated Sasuke for having been born and blessed with naturally gifted abilities that only few could dream of possessing and took everything he had in life for granted. At least even for a minute, which was far more than Naruto had ever experienced, he had family. He hated Minato Namikaze for being hailed as a hero because of his noble sacrifice, whilst Naruto, the one who was sacrificed, was treated like mud on the bottom of your shoe. He hated his parents for giving him away and then abandoning him without even thinking about it. He was little more than a bastard child, he had realized, unplanned and unwanted and discarded as soon as the first opportunity arose. Naruto hated them the reason most of all, for deciding his life the minute he was born without him having any say in the matter. He had no choice in it. Did they ask him if it was alright to put a monstrous demon inside his own body? To put these damn scars on his face? To make him feel as though he was less than them? What gave them the right? Any of them? To do that to a child who had just been born? And then to alienate that child and deprive him of even the most basic functions and emotions, that he'd cling to the first person who shows him the slightest hint of kindness? If they wanted the Kyuubi gone so bad, they could have sealed it inside themselves for all he cared. They went and ruined his life the minute he was born, giving him zero choice in the matter. Why didn't they put it in the damn prick the Uchiha instead? Make him be a jinchuriki. But of course, if they had done it, odds are that they'd throw a parade every day for Sasuke. He said bitterly to himself. That's just the way life is, some get everything they want by doing nothing, others do everything they can and get nothing in return. I'm one of them. He said and noticed his surroundings. The signs of bandits were apparent. Looking around, Naruto could see the obvious. A lone kid walking by himself. No bandit could resist such an easy target. He continued to walk along, playing ignorant, acting as though he did not sense them or heard their footsteps. Unaware that his eyes were wide and looking around as he detected 5 of them. If the bandits had a single brain amongst them, they would have had an archer poised to fire an arrow at him, but apparently they didn't. Might as well start the show. He whispered to himself, knowing that they were waiting for the chance to attack, and who was he to deny them? Continuing to feign ignorance, he stopped and dropped down to one knee to readjust his shoe, a hidden smirk on his face. The sound of rushing footsteps from the side and a weapon being hoisted up was heard as they came at him. He lifted his head up, leaning back, and avoided the club of the bandit and slammed his knee right into the thug's jaw, knocking his head up. He then yanked the club out of his hand and swung it right at his head, and the wooden club shattered on contact as the man fell and wasn't ever getting back up. The other bandits emerged from their hiding spots and rushed him, thinking to overwhelm him with numbers, but Naruto was ready for them. One went to stab him only for a log to appear in his place, and he reappeared above him in a tree and dropped down, landing on his neck. Twisting his hips and legs, he then threw the man onto the ground. Naruto was up again and twisted his body sideways to avoid a thrown knife. However, he was then grabbed and trapped in a bear hug from behind as one got him and wrapped his arms around him, holding him tight. Naruto fought and squirmed against them, and the knife thrower was getting ready to throw another one aimed at his head. Naruto leaned down and bit the man on the hand, making him yell in pain and loosen his hold. Knowing he had to be fast, he grabbed the man and placed him in front of him just as the other man threw his weapon. The knife flew by and hit his partner in the back. The man cried out in pain and fell, clutching his back where the blade was sticking out of. "Idiot," Naruto shouted under his breath, as that one would have done some damage. The knife thrower had a third one poised and ready to throw it, but Naruto was doing hand symbols. Naruto suddenly disappeared in smoke, and the man looked on, knife held up, trying to find out where he was. Panic on his face as he couldn't tell where he was at. He heard a groan and saw the first one who had attacked the boy and relaxed. He motioned for him to go another way and flushed the wretched boy who was giving them trouble out, and the wounded ninja nodded. Confident that no, they could deal with him, he turned around. Only to be met with a blow to the back of the skull and fell down, and the bandit turned into Naruto, who had disguised himself to get him to drop his guard. The last one, still standing, apparently the leader of the bunch, came upon Naruto as he attacked. Naruto dodged and avoided his attacks, as unlike the rest he actually had some skill as a fighter, as Naruto evaded his attacks but knew how to handle him. He feigned a look of panic on his face as he bobbed and weaved, narrowly dodging them, and the overconfident bandit attacked harder, but in doing so, in his arrogance, thinking he had an easy kill, his attacks were more sloppy and easily traceable, and Naruto could detect where they was coming from and how to avoid them. He dodged a swing and his foot shot out and slammed into the man's kneecap, making him yell in pain as he staggered backwards, and Naruto took that opening as he charged him. He swung his palm at his, thinking to take his head right off, but Naruto ducked under the swing and ran right up to him, too fast for the bandit to react and try to defend himself, as Naruto did hand symbols again and reached out with one hand. Naruto caught him by the throat, clamping his hand around his neck. The man dropped his weapon and batted and swatted at his arm, but Naruto wasn't letting go as he ignored the blows. The man tried to break the hold, but Naruto was too strong. Even with both hands he could not break the chokehold. Naruto brought his other arm back and made motions with it. A loud chirping sound, as if hundreds and hundreds of birds were chirping all at once, began to emit from his fist as sparks appeared, and it became covered with electricity as the sound grew louder and louder, echoing all throughout as his arm glowed full of power as the chirping had turned into that of lightning. "Chidori!" He shouted and slammed the attack right into him, slamming through his flesh, tearing through his ribs, and making his heart explode on contact and a hole through the other side. The bandit didn't even have the time to scream before he was dead. He dropped the leader to the ground without any remorse over killing him. The Chidori, the move that was deemed unusable without the Sharingan, he had learned it and had fixed a flaw. By simply restraining them up close and preventing them from moving as he had done, he could deliver the blow and kill them with no chance of missing it, despite losing most of his eyesight upon doing so. Since his former sensei had said that he only copied Sasuke's move before, he'd learn the one move he taught his prize pupil and use it to show him that anything the Uchiha could learn, he could learn and master as well. He turned around and looked on at the rest, who were terrified at what they had all just witnessed. Please, spare us. We'll do anything." One begged him, and disgust was in his eyes at how they sniveled before him. "We wanna live," he told them, glaring at the bandits. "Throw down your loot, gems, and anything of value and scram." He ordered them in a beastly voice, and the thugs threw down what items they had and backed away before running for their lives. Watching on, Naruto felt nothing. He had taken no satisfaction in beating them, in killing the scum. He felt empty inside, not even battle could elevate him. The only constant feeling inside him was anger and loathing. Naruto leaned down and scooped up what they had dropped. There was some small bags containing Ryo and a couple of small jewels he could sell at a pawn shop for decent money as he put them in his pockets. What caught his eye the most was the weapon the leader had dropped. It was a long pole weapon that was taller than him with a curved blade at the end. An Ajinata, that's what the weapon was as he remembered his books. He picked up the long weapon and examined it. Taking it in hand and recalling the images he had seen of people practicing it in them, took a stance and swung it slowly as the blade swished through the air, and he nodded as he examined it. The weapon was a bit beat up and worn as the blade looked to be dull, but should serve him for a while. Maybe when he got to a town that had a blacksmith he could get it fixed. Getting a cloth to wrap it up, he slung it sideways across his back. There was also a scroll containing jutsu, and he picked it up and unfurled it and examined it before nodding his head. This could come in useful for him. With his new gear and treasures he had obtained, he continued on. As he walked on, he soon saw a sign with directions. It said Wave Country, which was about 10 miles from here. For a brief moment, Naruto thought about going to Wave, which had named the bridge after him. He could go there, no doubt. Tazuna and his grandson and the people would welcome him, no doubt. But his feet took him left, going away from it. He needed to find his own place, his own belonging. His journey would not be stopped in Wave. There was more to it than there. At Konoha. The pair of green eyes slowly opened and found herself on a cot. Where am I? Sakura Haruno asked herself, and looking around found herself in the hospital. Suddenly she remembered what had happened. "Thank you," were the last words she heard before everything went dark. "Sasuke," she exclaimed in realization. She remembered what had happened, how she had poured her heart out to him last night. Begging him to not go, as he was going to leave Konoha to pursue power and would align himself with the one who had killed the third to do so if he had to. She had pleaded with him that she would help him, that they all would. And just when she thought she had got him to come around, Sasuke had knocked her out. She remembered the feeling of his hard hand against her, that which she had not expected him to do. "Sakura, you're awake," a voice said, and she turned and saw Kakashi standing in the doorway. "Sensei. Sasuke is." "I know, we've found out. Sasuke has been sighted heading towards the land of sound," he said to Sakura. "Calm down, Sakura, take a deep breath," he told her. "Izumo and Katesu found you last night on a bench. You tried to stop him yourself, didn't you?" "Why yes, we have to find him," Sakura said and got up, but Kakashi stopped her from leaving. "Let me through, sensei," she ordered him. "You're in no condition right now," he told her. "Shikamaru, Kiba, Choji, Shino and Niji have been sent as the team by Lady Tsunade to get and retrieve him. Hopefully they'll fare well and be able to bring him back," Kakashi said to her, and Sakura looked on at him a bit confused as those he had listed for it. "Where's Naruto?" she asked as his name wasn't listed amongst them. "He's gone," Kakashi told her. "Gone?" Sakura asked in confusion. "What do you mean?" "You mean he went on ahead before the others once he heard about it? That's typical of Naruto to do something like that," she said with a small smile. She could always count on him, that was Naruto's greatest attribute, pulling through when people needed him to no matter the odds. He's probably already got Sasuke and bringing him back right now. "No," Kakashi responded, surprising her. "He's gone." "What do you mean gone?" Sakura asked, a bit angry that he was dodging the question. "Where is he?" "He left, Sakura, he's left Konoha." Kakashi said to her, and slowly her eyes grew in shock as realization hit her. What? No, no, you can't be serious, Naruto would never leave. She claimed to him, and Kakashi looked at her. He did, he left apparently shortly before Sasuke. Kakashi said to her, confirming it. We have no idea where he could be. I thought I saw him last night, but it was just a bushin. He's left us as well. He has been consumed with fury, anger and rage have overtaken him. We have to find him. She exclaimed, stunned that Naruto would leave. Why? Why would he do this? She asked, pleading for an answer. We've already sent a team after Sasuke, with luck they'll find him. We can't let him go to Orochimaru. But what about Naruto? What's going to be done about him? Sakura asked him, looking on, and Kakashi shook his head. It's been decided that right now, Sasuke is the main priority. Once they have brought him back, we'll do something about Naruto. Right now we're low on men, so we can't send out 2 squads. So we're just going to sit here and not do anything? Sakura asked, a bit angry that they weren't doing anything about Naruto. Kakashi didn't say anything and walked out of the room. She looked on at his retreating form as she was left with no answers and many more questions. Sakura left soon enough, her mind a whirlwind of thoughts. How? Why? Why would Naruto leave Konoha? What on earth possessed him to leave? He would never do such a thing. She walked on through the village, her teammates, in the span of only a few hours both of them had left. She came to a building and looked on as she saw some young kids, those who haven't even started in the academy yet, were inside and getting ice cream with their parents. As the young genin looked on, an image appeared in her mind. That of a very familiar looking girl standing there as well. She remembered that day. The pink-haired girl looked on as the boy walked away, tears forming in his face over what had just happened. She has been walking down looking to get some ice cream when she witnessed him not be allowed in. Sakura looked on as the boy began to cry. Silently she entered the ice cream parlor and asked for a strawberry popsicle and was given it. She went to take a bite but then remembered the image of him crying over not being allowed to get one and asked for a second popsicle, a sherbet-flavored one. The owner was a bit surprised but gave her it, and she paid him and ran out of the store and went in the direction he had went, the popsicles in hand. Sakura soon found him as he was walking dejectedly towards his home and reached it as he was starting to cry. Moving behind him, she reached out and tapped him on the shoulder, and he turned around and she smiled as she held out the popsicle before him. The next day, she unfortunately had an encounter with Ami and the bullies. "Why are you so mean to me?" she shouted at them, who laughed at her. "Look at that forehead. I bet you could put an ad on there. That's probably the only job you could get." Ami taunted her with a mean smile. Sakura brought her hands up over her forehead trying to cover it up. "No boy is ever going to want to kiss a girl with a giant forehead like that," Ami said to her, and she and the others laughed and Sakura started to cry. A small nest suddenly appeared between the bully's legs and it opened up and released several wasps and they began biting and stinging Ami and them. "Ow, ow. Leave me alone. Mommy." Ami shouted, trying to swat them away as she cried out, and she and the others ran away, the wasps chasing them. Sakura looked on a bit confused at what just happened. "Hi." A voice shouted and she turned and saw a boy and she recognized him from yesterday. "Did you do that?" she asked the blonde-haired boy, who smiled at her. "No," he said, and she knew he was fibbing. "My name's Naruto, what's your name?" he asked her. "My name's Sakura." She replied back to him with a smile as she looked on at the boy who was around her age. "Would you do that? They don't have any right to bully you like that. If you ask me, you have a great forehead and anyone would want to kiss it," he said, and suddenly before she could react he leaned forward and kissed her on the forehead and she gasped in surprise. "Bye, Sakura," he said, waving his hand, and walked away as Sakura stood there, her face turning pinker than her hair. Sakura stood there as she recalled the memories of what had happened and how Naruto had always had nice things to say to her, how when he saw her he would always try and cheer her up and make her laugh. The Pincat stood there in front of the shop, remembering that Naruto would never call her annoying or make jokes about her, even if she got irritated with him. And truth be told, as they had started to grow up, she had started to consider him a friend. Her parents didn't mind her being with him, so long as she didn't get involved in any of his pranks. But then the academy and her rivalry with Ino over Sasuke happened and she brushed him off and ignored him in favor of trying to win Sasuke's attention. But as they were put on a team and they reconciled, they became friends again through their missions and tasks they did. Naruto still, despite the distance between them, had always been friendly towards her, even if she found his antics annoying at times. "Naruto, what has happened to you?" she solemnly asked herself, her mind racing 100 miles a minute as she thought back to that day and to now. "Why have you done this? You swore loyalty forever to Konoha, what's gone wrong that has made you do this?" she asked, and she had no answers. The beam of light hit her face and she turned her head and saw that something was reflecting the light off of it nearby. That wasn't just an hit I ate, she could immediately tell that that belonged to Naruto. It was his, and he had taken it off and abandoned it. He really has left. She said in horror. That was Naruto's most prized possession. He's gone. She said as she picked it up. She remembered just then as she had fallen unconscious from Sasuke's blow, she thought she saw for a brief moment Naruto walking away in the distance. He had seen what had happened, he saw her display that she had put on in front of Sasuke. And it had torn his heart apart as she realized just now how he felt towards her. Sakura fell to her knees clutching his hit to her chest. Thump thump thump. Hooves were seen marching across the dirt road as a farmer was seen at the front of a wagon driving his mule. The back of the wagon was shown and lying in the cart asleep was Naruto. The blonde ninja laid there having hitched a ride earlier when he had saw it passing by. His feet having become sore enough that even he couldn't ignore them anymore, he came across it and asked to ride on the back of it. The farmer had been suspicious at first of Naruto, thinking it was a trick and he was a robber, but when Naruto had offered him one of the gems he had gotten from the bandits, the man's tone had changed and gladly given him a ride. Naruto had gotten on the back of the cart and stretching out as he ignored the smell of the farmer's contents in it, had fallen asleep for the first time in over a day. He laid there his hands on his chest, paying no attention to the bumps of the road or the old man's chattering as he slept. I love you. I've always loved you. Why can't you be more like him instead? He never would make such a mistake. It's pointless to ask such a question, it won't bring your parents back to life. As the boy walked on, he occasionally sniffled and wiped his hand across his eyes and nose. Naruto marched on, Konoha in the distance behind him as he was leaving. He just couldn't take it anymore. After everything, he finally reached his limit. Tears of anger burning down his face, he kept on. Never stopping, never turning around, not even when the village was ablaze he continued on. As he did he heard the voices repeating themselves in his head. A failure like you will never amount to anything. Picking up speed, he broke off into a run. Naruto's eyes shot open as a gasp escaped him. Silently he cursed to himself in anger at hearing those voices, those that mocked him. The cart came to a stop and Naruto pulled himself up and looked out as he saw a village in the distance. Deciding that this was his stop he gathered his gear and got out of the cart and tossed the man another gem as a token of his appreciation as he looked on and stretched his muscles taking in his surroundings. The place he noticed was small, only about half as big as wave it looked like to him. It seemed to be a simple market village as he saw no ninja around. The people didn't regard or notice him as he walked through it as they went on about their lives. That was fine, he didn't want to be noticed anyway. He got a sense of where everything was at though he wasn't planning on staying long. Looking at the citizens, most wore shabby clothing and many of the vendors and stores he noticed had a sign on them with a symbol he didn't recognize but paid no attention to. I want to exchange these for some money. He said as he entered a jewel store and put the sack of gems on the counter. The man who owned it, whose mop of unkempt hair made him look like a weasel examined them with a grin. Fine collection you have there boy, he said as he held up one of them. But I'm afraid many of these are actually fake or have little value. I'm afraid that Naruto suddenly grabbed him by the arm startling him. Don't play any games with me pal, I'm not in the mood. He told the pawn shop owner who sweat dropped as he saw right through his ploy. These combined are enough to last you for a month together, so how about you give me what they're worth and I'll leave alright. As you wish young master. The man nervously said as he went to the register to pay him. Naruto exited the shop looking around and putting his hands in his pockets, went on as he walked through the village. Now he noticed some of them had realized he was an outsider and looking at him with suspicion including a group. Naruto. An older male voice called out and it was one that Naruto recognized and he turned around and saw an elder man with gray hair and glasses. Tazuna, Naruto said as he looked on the man who was his employer during that fateful mission, which seemed to have happened years ago. What are you doing here? Naruto asked the bridge builder. I could ask you the same thing. Tazuna said looking on as he didn't expect to see Naruto here in this place. Where are the others you're with? He asked as he looked around half expecting to see the boy's teammates with him. It's just me. Naruto said to the man. Just you? Tazuna asked and Naruto nodded his head in confirmation. Are you here on some sort of ninja business? Nah, I just stopped by while I was walking. What about you? What brings you here? I was here to pick up lumber that I had ordered, but the rates I'm being charged are outrageous. This will be the last time that I order anything from here. Tazuna said with a hint of annoyance in his voice. You'd think Gato had survived. But enough of that, come it's been much too long since we saw one another. Naruto went with Tazuna as they went to a food booth and ordered a meal. Tazuna could see that something had happened to Naruto. What's wrong? Why are you acting like this? He asked him. I don't want to talk about it. Naruto said to him not looking up from his plate. Something's happened to you boy, a ninja I'm not, but even I can tell when something's up. You wouldn't be here only by yourself unless something's going on. Tazuna said to Naruto. Let's just say that I've decided to retire from my former lifestyle. Naruto said as he shoved his finished plate away. I'm done with it all. You should be out there using your abilities to help people. Tazuna said to him. Right now I just want to be left alone. Naruto replied to him. I don't want to get involved with anything or anyone. But that would just be a waste. Tazuna told him and Naruto looked on at him. Come with me, come home to wave with me. He offered him. Find your place working with me and rekindle your soul, there's a lot that you could do there. Sorry, but I can't. Tazuna looked on but nodded his head in understanding. Trying to get him to would only make things worse. Whatever it was with him, he could not provide the solution despite his desire to help the boy. Alright, I pray that things get better for you, Naruto. If you ever find yourself nearby, know that we will be there for you. Me, my daughter, Inari. You'll always have a place there. He patted him on the arm gently and left, and Naruto watched him leave. Naruto found a inn to stay at which he noticed had one of the symbols he saw before on the top and went in and paid for a room. Naruto fell on the mattress and laid on it. He stared up at the ceiling aimlessly. After several minutes he shut his eyes, drifting into an aimless sleep. Another person appeared in the room, standing at the end of the bed looking on at him. He appeared transparent as though he was not all there in the room. It was him and it wasn't him. The person looked like him, but there was a noticeable difference. His eyes, they were mocking and cruelty was in them as he looked on at Naruto. He represented everything that he was not. A dark look was on his face as the nails had his hands changed and sharpened into claws as he disappeared. In the span of over 24 hours, Konoha had been rocked with all that had happened. The mission to retrieve Sasuke had been a failure. Those sent on it had nearly died in the process, and if not for the unexpected arrival of the new Kazekage and his siblings to help them retreat, would have been killed. Some were in intensive care, being under constant watch from the wounds they had received. Sasuke was now with the traitor. Word also came out as well that Naruto had also left and none had seen him. The only person who had was Kakashi, and that was only a Bushin as he had left earlier. The blow of losing both the last Uchiha as well as a jinchuriki was a heavy one to Konoha. Their shock at Sasuke had turned into rage and it was directed at Naruto, with some accusing him of being responsible for what had happened and demanded retribution against him. Even some of his fellow classmates shared sentiments on how he had left. Despite his earlier exploits and accomplishments, the resentment of what had happened when the Kyuubi attacked long ago was still there and it had resurfaced and was being directed at him. Tsunade stared at Sakura Haruno, the last member of Team 7. The goddess looked on as she had called her into her office to meet with her. Sakura, you know what all has happened, right? Yes. Sakura solemnly said, and Tsunade looked on as the girl appeared to be broken from what had happened. She had lost not only her teammates, but her friends as well. The human side of her didn't want to say what she had to say next, but the ninja part of her overruled it. Now wasn't the time for sentiments, no matter how it would affect you. The council is pressuring me into taking action and I'm seeing no choice in the matter. Tsunade said to her. There is little more I can do but mark both Sasuke and Naruto as missing nin. She said, and Sakura looked up at her. No, you can't. Sakura said to her. As missing nin, they would be hunted down. Sakura, both Naruto and Sasuke have left the village and have committed treason in doing so. When you break the law, you must be punished for your actions. I know they were your teammates, but you know the law for desertion and no one is exempt from it regardless of personal feelings in the matter. I'm sorry but their actions cannot be ignored. I know about your crush, but I am not going to risk. I don't care if you mark Sasuke as a missing nin. Sakura exclaimed. I don't care what you do to him, but please leave Naruto out of this. She said to Tsunade, who looked on at her. Sakura stared back at her and turned around to walk out of the room. Sakura, where are you going? I'm going to find Naruto and I'm going to bring him back. She said to her. She was going to find him, she was going to make amends for what had happened. Sakura, don't be foolish, Tsunade chided her as she shook her head. The girl was being silly, she could not hope to succeed in bringing him back alone. No. Sakura said, surprising her at her outburst. It's all my fault that this has happened, if anyone should be punished for what all has happened it's me. I'm the reason why he left, it's because of me this has happened. Punish me instead of him. I'll take whatever was in store in his place. She proclaimed. You did nothing, Sakura. Tsunade said, trying to. You're right, Sakura said bitterly. I did nothing and ignored what was in front of me this whole time. And now I'm paying the price for it. She told Tsunade. Please, don't mark him as a missing nin. I'm begging you. Just give me this one thing, that's all I'm asking from you. The older ninja looked on at the young genin. You really care about him a lot, don't you? She asked, and Sakura nodded her head and Tsunade shook her head in defeat. You silly little girl. Sigh, fine, I'll grant him lenience for now, but only for now, I can't make any promises regarding how things will go. It's on you if he does anything to threaten Konoha, understand? She said, and Sakura bowed her head. You have no idea how big of a risk I'm taking doing this for you. Others aren't going to like that I'm not going to mark Naruto, you know. Please Lady Hokage, do this for me and I promise you will never regret it. Make it so I don't kid. Tsunade grumbled and Sakura smiled for the first time since Naruto had departed. Thank you. She said in sincere gratitude and turned and left. Sakura exited the building and made her way. Ignoring people talking about what had happened as her thoughts were back to all that had happened. Sakura had failed him, she had failed Naruto. Her actions was responsible for this. She knew that he left because of her, too focused on Sasuke all this time, she never once noticed Naruto until it was too late. If she had, none of this would have ever happened as she realized just how much he meant to her. She saw a man with white hair looking on through a peephole at the hot springs, a look of irritation on his face at what he was seeing. You're pathetic. She said and the man jolted a bit up in surprise and turned and saw her standing there. Oh, it's you. He said to Sakura. What do you want, girl? Jiraiya said to her. None of the ladies have shown up today for some reason. I wonder why. Sakura dryly said in response and Jiraiya caught her sarcasm. I'm not interested in you, go away, wait 3 years to grow up and maybe you'll be some fun. Jiraiya said and Sakura scowled at him. Don't you even care? She asked him. Don't you even care at all about what's happened? She demanded from him. Is this about the Gaki? Don't worry, he'll be back. She was told. Naruto's angry perhaps, but he'll be alright. I'd wager he'll be back within the next day. What makes you so sure? Sakura asked him. He'll be back, he just needs a day or two to get the anger out of his system. Once he has he'll return. Once he's done playing run away from home he'll come back and things will go back to normal. Jiraiya told her. The Gaki will be fine. Sakura looked on at him before leaning her hand back and went to smack him. Jiraiya, having been hit numerous times before, knew it was coming and dodged it. He's not coming back. She told him and Jiraiya was a bit startled at the tone of her voice. How can you possibly call yourself a teacher if this is how you treat your students? She exclaimed in disbelief. Don't you get it? This isn't a game. Naruto's serious. He's left us because of what we did to him and you're only proving him right. I'd like it if you didn't question my teaching methods. Jiraiya said to her. Well, what did you teach him then? Sakura said, wanting to know. Easy, I gave him the toad summoning contract and taught him the Rasengan. And what? What else? Sakura said to him, scowling at Jiraiya. You just gave him one thing and thought that he'd be okay with that. She said to him. Naruto's not some toy you have to wind up in to make him work and that's all you'll need. He's a human being with feelings and we all treated him as though he wasn't and ignored what he was going through. We failed him, don't you understand? Jiraiya looked on at Sakura. What makes you believe we have? We failed him in multiple ways, all of us did, as a friend, as a teammate, and you failed him as a teacher, Jiraiya. She told him he was excited to be your student, I heard, and yet you decided not to do anything with him, only then use him as a guard for your precious research. If you trained the fourth, then how did he become Hokage then? She asked before turning and walking away. Another was nearby, having heard it all and knew that she was right. He wasn't the only one who failed him as a teacher, Sakura. Kakashi solemnly said to himself, thinking of the lost boy. A shattering sound was heard and it caught Naruto's attention as he opened his eyes, having been woken up. The sounds of a scuffle and argument was heard downstairs which woke him up. He had been in a dreamless sleep for hours until just now. Rolling out of bed in annoyance, he got out of the room to see what the commotion was all about as he went down the stairs. He looked on and saw that a group of men, some who he had seen earlier before he remembered, were messing things up and threatening the owner into giving them money for something. Just make a small contribution and we'll go away. Just enough so Mr. Sakia can make sure that your streets and homes are protected. He's a very generous man to those who cooperate. They told the inn owner, who wasn't backing down. I'm sure your customers will appreciate it as well if you did. I've paid his rent money, I'm not paying a single cent more. He said in defiance. I built this place with my own 2 hands before he took over and will not allow someone else to come in and make a mockery of what I've done. It's bad enough he went and put that stupid logo of his over my building. He said, but was shoved down onto the ground and one of the men flipped over a table, knocking over the contents and shattering the pictures. Give us the money, the man said, advancing warningly to him. Hey, keep it down. Naruto said, and they turned and saw him standing in the hallway. Some of us are trying to sleep. What you say, punk? One said to him. You heard me, I'm not liking you coming and acting like a bunch of dogs in heat. How about you take it someplace else? Naruto told the group, who looking on laughed at him. Hey, take care of him, will you? One said to the other, and the man stepped forward and Naruto looked on, a bored look on his face as he sized him up. The man drew his hand back, cocking his fist, and lunged it forward. Naruto snapped his head forward, colliding against it, and the man cried out, holding his hand. Naruto's foot lunged forward, kicking him in the groin, sending the man to the floor. Another charged at him and Naruto pulled out a kunai and threw it at his knee, making him fall to one knee as it stuck out of it as Naruto appeared behind him and threw him out the door onto the street. The man with the sore balls was also getting up before he too was thrown out an open window as well, landing beside the other. Naruto turned around and saw the last one who had lost the nerve when facing someone who could fight back. "Get out," he told him, and the man fled without a second thought. Naruto watched them go, disgust in his eyes before glancing over at the inn owner who had recovered. "You're either very brave or very foolish," the man told him. "But you have my thanks for ridding them," he said, but Naruto wasn't listening. Naruto faintly recalled the name that was said before. It sparked a memory that he had heard of 2 days before he had left. "HMPH, another Gato," he said, a bit of disdain in his voice as this was amongst the worst kind of scum. Now he knew why Tazuna was complaining earlier. Like the late Gato, Sakura too was once an honest tradesman. But upon sampling the taste of his newfound wealth, he found it to his liking and began craving more and more. Fellow traders who competed with him were either bought out or their businesses mysteriously were attacked and destroyed, driving them to bankruptcy, whilst he alone was unaffected. He moved into protection fees, loan shark and extortion, also to fill his coffers, and seeking to take control of the void left behind by Gato. Knowing he can bribe his way out if he were legally arrested. Anbu, hired by one of his victims, were going to be assigned to a mission to deal with him as Naruto had unknowingly ventured into his territory. Normally, with all that had happened, Naruto wouldn't have bothered with them as he wasn't in the mood to deal with and be the hero to others' problems anymore. But the fact that his thugs had attacked him, Sakura, had made things personal right now. He stepped out of the inn, ignoring the owner's words as he looked and could easily spot where Sakura lived. It was the only large building in the village and it stuck out like a sore thumb. Bringing hands up, he started a jutsu and he made copies as he made his move. A man was shown seated in his private quarters, lounging in a chair as he looked on. A lit cigar was in his mouth as he looked on, examining his profits. He enjoyed the taste and inhalation of the cigar. This was quality brand, not some cheaply made product made only for the best. One of the fruits of his labor that he was enjoying. This whole town was under his thumb. He had investments in and owned almost every business. Buying them out for cheap prices and forcing them to give him a cut of what they made. People here either bought from him or worked for him, and if they didn't, they'd learn the hard way that it was better to work with him than against him. He was planning on expanding soon and start a monopoly on places such as this. He'd be careful though, not on any place that had a ninja village nearby. He had heard of the grisly death of Gato, who reached his hand out too far. In 2 hours, he made double the amount of money than he'd make in an honest day's work would have ever provided. Sure, he may have damned his soul with his methods, but he was planning on living a very long and wealthy life. He'd worry about that day when it comes. Right now he'd enjoy the splendors he had obtained. Don't you ever get tired of counting it? "What the? Who's there?" Sakura exclaimed as he looked on as he heard a voice. He looked and saw standing in the corner of his room a kid. "You seem to like your money, don't you?" the orange and blue clad boy said to him. "What the? How'd you get in my office?" Sakura demanded to know. "Where are my guards?" "Your defenses are sloppy, I was expecting more," the boy said, and Sakura glared at him. "You didn't even protect your door other than a lock which I picked and snuck in," he said as he had been standing there for some time. "You got some nerve coming here, boy, tell me who in the world you are," he demanded to know as he put his cigar out and stood up. "My name's Naruto," the kid confirmed. "And as for your men, they're napping right now," he said to him as he had used his bushins to ambush and take out those around the place, thus enabling him to sneak inside the man's quarters, who narrowed his brows at him. "The comedian, are we? Well, excuse me if I find your attempts at humor bad. Have I ever done something to upset you?" he asked as he tried to place the kid's face as he didn't look like anyone he knew. "You've done nothing to me." "Ha. Well, in that case, you are intruding and trespassing on my property, but I'm a forgiving man who prefers to turn the other cheek first," he said as he stood up. "How's about a deal?" Sakura offered him. "I could use a bodyguard like you, think about it, boy. Work for me and snub out those who poke their noses in where they don't belong or try to be an upstart, and you can have all the money you want," he offered Naruto, who looked on at him. "Who knows? Sticking with me and you can learn a lesson or two in how I do business and what makes the world work. What do you say?" he offered, extending his hand with a grin. "I doubt I can learn anything from the likes of you, but perhaps you would like it if I gave you a lesson instead," Naruto said in response. Sakura looked on at him, confusion spreading across his face when Naruto suddenly appeared in front of him, having dashed across the room and was right in front of him and had grabbed him by the jacket he wore. To him, it was as if the boy had teleported. "Here's a lesson for you to remember in your next life. Money is not power," Naruto told him as he gripped him by the collar, and fear spread across his face as for a moment the boy's eyes changed color from blue to red. The shattering sound of glass was heard and a man fell out of the window, a high shriek emitting from him as he fell, landing down on the ground with a loud thud, the contact killing him instantly. The group of people gathered around some looking on in shock and disbelief as they saw what had happened, a pool of blood flowed from Sakia's corpse. As the merchant's empire crumbled in less of a night span, those in the village wondered who was responsible for it and their newfound relief. Unknown to them, the unexpected hero was leaving the village, having taken a portion of Sakia's wealth carried in a pack slung over his shoulders, leaving the rest of it to the inhabitants. Naruto continued onward, looking on at the rising sun in the distance. A swishing sound was heard as a weapon was seen swinging through the air. Naruto held the Naginata in his arms as he took practice swings with it, working on the restored weapon as he was training with it. An impaled squirrel was seen hanging and cooking over a fire, that being his supper for the night. He continued training with the weapon, imagining he was striking down foes, envisioning those he hated the most in front of him as he did. Some time later after finishing up he sat in front of the fire, looking on at them, as it was the only source of light as there was no moon tonight. Already it was going low, but he couldn't be bothered to get more wood or grass to feed it, soon it would snuff out and it would be pitch black all around. Naruto stared into the fire, watching the flames and embers which reflected off of his eyes. Staring blankly into them as the flames glowed. Looking on, he saw an image of a person there. He saw her face in the flames. Sakura, Naruto said as he looked on at the fire. The one girl he loved, the only girl he wanted to be with. He was in love with her. Naruto's feelings for Sakura were genuine. She meant everything to him. He wasn't faking about his emotions towards her or pretending to be in love because of some stupid rivalry or competition. What kind of scumbag and hypocrite did people think he was that he would do such a thing? He loved the girl with all his heart. She'll never be yours. A voice suddenly said and Naruto lifted his head up and turned his head towards the direction of which it was coming from. Standing there against a tree was a person who looked like him. The figure could be mistaken for him easily as they were dressed the same one and had the same hairstyle and built until one saw his eyes and the cruelty that was in them. You know she'll never love you. The being mocked him as it sounded just like him and Naruto looked on at the apparition. What made you think that she'll ever love you? A monster can never be loved. It asked, a dark grin on his face. Don't you know that she'll only ever love Sasuke? No matter what you do, her heart will always belong to him. They're happy that you are gone now. No one ever wanted you around anyway. Dark Naruto said to him. Sakura knows she won't ever have to put up with you anymore and can focus and devote all her time on Sasuke. Naruto said nothing as he stared at the ground and his counterpart laughed. Kill her, that's what you should do. You're a monster, that's what we do. Kill anyone who gets in our way or looks at us funny. It'd be for the best if you went back there and did it, kill her and her precious Sasuke. After all, it wouldn't surprise me once they heard that you was gone that they celebrated and they've went and already had. Naruto tossed a bone at him and Dark Naruto disappeared as it passed through him. Naruto stared with anger at the spot where he had been, his hand clutching in fury as it shook as his mocking words echoed through his mind. He buried his face in his arms and knees, hiding himself from the world. The god Aim, the slug Sannin, Tsunade entered the room, a look of annoyance on her face as she came in. While it had been made officially known that Sasuke was a missing nin and his name posted in the wanted books, Naruto however had not been. There had been no announcement or message regarding his status. He was still registered as a genin ninja of Konoha. Once it had been realized, an immediate meeting was ordered and it was one that she could not ignore. I swear, if I didn't need it to live, I'd sell my heart of gold. You owe me big time for this, Sakura. Tsunade grumbled to herself as she sat on her assigned seat. So for what reason has this meeting been called? She asked out loud. I'm sure we all have better things right now we'd rather be doing. She said, but few shared her mirth or attempted lightening the mood. Lady Hokage. Hiashi Hyuga said, speaking up and standing from his seat. In 3 sunsets past, Sasuke Uchiha was marked as a missing nin. Yes, unfortunately so, but he has willingly aligned himself with Orochimaru and such an incident cannot be overlooked or ignored. She explained herself to them. However, there is another who has turned his back on the leaf, Hiashi spoke up. We all know who he is and yet there has been no word or announcement regarding his status despite what he has willingly done. No point in beating around the bush, we all know who it is. How about you get to the point instead of trying to draw attention with your spectacle? Tsunade asked and Hiashi stared hard at her. Yes, we know who it is. Naruto Uzumaki. The Kyuubi vessel. Shibi Aburam, the father of Shino, muttered. From what we gathered from intel, Naruto left the same night that Sasuke disappeared. Kaheru said, the elder speaking up. He had a Bushin pose as him so not to draw attention when he departed. Himeru, the other teammate of Sarutobi, spoke up. He had been gone for hours once it was realized that he was gone and had left. Lady Hokage, with all due respect, why is it that the Kyuubi vessel has not been listed as missing nin and traitor? which he no doubt deserves to be marked as for what he's done. Hiashi asked and Tsunade looked on at all of them. The mood was thick, many were not happy with all that had happened. To my knowledge, Naruto, unlike Sasuke, has not joined any opposing village or terrorist organization. That means nothing, it doesn't matter if he has aligned himself with another or not, he still has committed treason. I agree, the boy has long been a public nuisance, pulling his pranks and being a ruckus. The Sandaime was too soft on the boy. Sumin said, a frown on her face. He should be marked and dragged back here and whipped like my clan does to an unruly hound to remind him who it is that's in charge. That we make the rules and he is to follow them. She said, and many murmured in agreement. You seem eager to dish out punishment to him, but not so willing to have the same thing be done to Sasuke, since he in your words has also committed treason. Tsunade replied. That is different. How so? Sasuke has joined up with a wanted man who has committed countless atrocities, including responsible for the deaths of many here. Naruto has not, from all we know, he has become a maverick and shown no allegiance to any village or country. A bandit that was captured earlier today appeared to have been scarred mentally as his rambled on about a boy who killed many others. And there you see it. Already he's become a wild beast that cannot be controlled. Hiashi spoke up as if that was enough proof. You should be put down before he becomes a threat to the village. You realize that your duty as Hokage is to ensure that nothing comes to harm Konoha, regardless of your personal feelings in the matter. He said in a haughty tone and Tsunade frowned at him. I'm well aware what my duties were when I got suckered into taking this position. She coolly replied to him, not letting her anger get the best of her. Then you realize what it is that must be done then. Tsunade sat there, they were making it clear that they'd accept nothing less than Naruto being marked as a missing nin. Even those who have had nothing against him like Koharu and Himeru, regardless of one's feelings, treason was the ultimate crime and could not be overlooked. But Tsunade had an ace up her sleeve that she was now going to play. Alright then, you've all made your points and there is valid in them. I see I have no choice but to label him as a missing nin and wanted. I'm glad you've chosen to come around. Hiashi said, but Tsunade held up her hand. But first, let me ask you all something before I do. She said and looked on, her gaze reaching all of them there in the room. If Naruto is marked as a missing nin and it's made known that he is, what do you think's gonna happen once it's announced? She asked them. What do you expect the other 4 villages or a minor country looking to increase its power to do once they hear about it? You think they're just going to ignore it and go about on their lives once they hear what's happened? Absolutely not, there will be a widespread manhunt for him, everyone would be chasing after to capture him and use the fox for their own purposes. I've seen a glimpse of what he could do if he uses it, trust me, if what I saw, which is not even a fraction, is frightening, then imagine the full power or so then unleashed like before on that fateful day long ago. Tsunade said to them, and judging by their reactions they didn't expect that. Tsunade knew that they hadn't expected that outcome if she did what they wanted. Iwa, Kumo and others would do everything they could to get Naruto and use the Kyuubi's power for themselves. So go ahead, let me make it known public, hey, the 9-tailed fox has left us, first one to get him gets to keep him. I'll do that right now. She said and started to raise from her seat. No, Hiashi said, and Tsunade hid well her victorious smirk. Very well, we agree with your decision for now. He shall not be marked but only for now. I'm glad you all chosen to be practical instead of vindictive. The Godame said to them. Naruto must be found and convinced to come back, but not be harmed or spoiled in any way, as that won't do us any good. If we can just get through to him, he may come back. So be it, Koharu said and stood up. Naruto will not be labeled, but Lady Hokage, if Naruto does do something that endangers the leaf or attacks one of its inhabitants, or aligns himself with another, you understand, then we shall have no choice but to list him. I understand, I pray though it will not have to come to that. She said to them. This meeting is dismissed. She said, and gradually the assembled clan heads and members departed, leaving her there. Naruto found himself in a town, wasn't really a town though, little more than a cluster of houses grouped together with about just over 100 people in total at the most. He had stumbled upon the place on his way and had stopped, he hadn't even bothered to learn the name of the area. It didn't matter to him. He was standing beside a tree looking on at a house in the distance, a get-together was being held as a birthday was being celebrated and a party was being had. He looked on at the party, a group of kids were seen playing. Running around and laughing, having a good time without a single care in the world with smiles on their faces. As he watched, he could almost imagine standing next to him a younger child looking on. Wanting to join in with them and play games and have fun. But not being allowed to by the adults who didn't want him there. Naruto continued to watch on as he saw the father bringing out a cake for his son, while the mother had a present in her arms as everyone gathered around. Something which he wouldn't know what was like. Fathers, Naruto said with a spat. What's so great about them or mothers? He muttered, stuffing his hands in his pockets. His own made it clear the day he was born he wasn't wanted and got rid of him as soon as he could. If his father and mother had even an ounce of love for him, they wouldn't have abandoned him the way they did. He turned and walked away from the sight. He turned the corner and his eyes widened in surprise when he saw a pair of shinobi standing not 10 feet away from him. Naruto stopped in his place, eyes darting around, looking and almost expecting for multiple others to appear out of the blue and attack him. He stayed on guard waiting for something to happen. Every muscle was tensed and on edge, ready to do whatever it was that was necessary. It had finally come to this. If they attacked though, they weren't going away without casualties, that much was clear. After several long minutes had passed, he had realized that nothing was going to happen as he looked on at the two that were standing there. "You're kidding me," he said to himself as he looked on at the two. They were Leaf Ninja, and one of them had bandages over part of his face. Looking on, Naruto recognized them, having seen them before, their names being Izumo and Katetsu. Naruto thought very little of the two. Honestly, they were morons in his eyes who couldn't find their asses with their hands. The two were as usual arguing over something trivial and stupid and didn't even seem to notice that he was right across from them. They weren't sent to find him, apparently he saw Izumo and Katetsu by sheer coincidence. Neither were alert or paying attention to their surroundings of what was going on. He couldn't believe it, the two so fixated on whatever it was they were arguing about they didn't even notice him standing there and slowly approached them. Naruto walked forward and pilfered from them, his hands slipping into their pockets and pulling out a scroll and Damascus knife, and took them for himself. Pickpocketing was an old skill he had. Before he met Iruka, he would pick the pockets as his way of testing himself. But how ignorant of their surroundings the two were, they had no idea of him taking it and walking away as they continued arguing, which was escalating into raised fists. It was amazing how some people didn't notice him even when he was directly underneath them. When he thought about it, it didn't come as a surprise, given how most wanted to pretend he didn't exist, enabling him to eavesdrop and see or hear stuff that was supposed to be secret. He wondered how the Hyuga Patriarch would react if it was made known to all where he went and what he did once a week like he had seen him do in secret. Naruto continued on when he heard a voice and saw a man talking to a group of people. "You must protect this land, that is our duty," the man said to the assembled group there. "Our duty is to save the inhabitants and the village from anything that may threaten us. The great villages do so and so shall we as well," he told them as Naruto listened on. "Our greatest reward we shall ever accomplish is not idle or money, but by knowing if we fall and lay down our life so that we protected the village and saw to it that the next generation will carry on our teachings. It is the village that lasts forever, not us, and it shall stand so long as we remember these words." Naruto, rolling his eyes, heard enough and spoke up. "You honestly believe that load of crap?" he said, and the assembled group turned and saw him. "I can tell all of you right now that he's speaking nothing more than mindless drivel and gibberish," he told the group, and the speaker scowled at his remarks. "Young man, I don't know who you are, but I would prefer it if you did not say such things," he was told, and Naruto scoffed. "Why? Because they'll realize that you're lying to them. That no matter what they do, in the end if they follow your words their dreams will never come true," he remarked. "Hold your tongue, you wretched child," the speaker said as tension was raising in the air, but Naruto wasn't backing down. "What happens when you protect the village, but the village chooses not to protect you? Say to lay down your life for it, but it won't ever do the same for you? What happens when instead of being rewarded for your duty, you are ridiculed and thought of as lesser?" he demanded from them. "What about when the village decides it needs a scapegoat? That they need someone to kick around like a dog for their own amusement and expect them to sit there and take it? Will of fire? More like will of shit, that's what it all really is. How dare you say such a thing?" "Why? Because I'm speaking the truth," Naruto snidely replied to them. "You can paint it any way you want to, but the facts are it only really exists so for people to find someone else to pin the blame on for their own damn problems," he said and looked on at the group. "I've heard enough of your mouth," the man said and stepped forward. The man went to strike Naruto when he grabbed the arm and slammed it onto the table. He then pulled out the knife he stole from Izumo and pressed the edge of the blade against the tips of the man's fingers. What are you doing? Stop. You insult me, go to hit me, and when I defend myself you have the nerve to beg for mercy," Naruto said, disgust in his voice as he pressed the blade of the knife against the fingertips. Just a bit more pressure added and he would cut into his skin and through the bone and slice them off. He looked on at the man and saw the fear in his face, the panic in his eyes and dread, knowing that there was nothing he could do to stop Naruto as whimpers escaped his throat. And complete 180 from what he had been before. Pathetic. He removed the blade and shoved the man into the group who fled from him. All of them did so, running away from him as Naruto stood there watching them. "That's right, all of you run," Naruto shouted at them, and a tear went down his anger-filled face as he looked on. "Go ahead and run. Run from the damn demon." Sakura sat on the same bench that she had been found at, holding in her hands and looking down at Naruto's hit. She stared down at it, the only thing that she had left of him. It was a disaster, all of it was. She was the sole member of Team 7 left now. Sasuke had left and Naruto had ran away. Sasuke in his madness pursuing power and Naruto in anger over how she had done him. There seemed to be no hope, this was beyond her worst fears. Things were only getting worse and worse with each passing day it appeared, and it looked like there was nothing that could be done to stop this from happening. A tear fell down her eye dropping onto the metal part of the headband as she stared at it. She had two choices she knew. The first, she could continue to sit there and cry over what had happened and hope that her tears would bring him back, which likely would never happen. The second, she trained and got stronger, and then once she had done so, go out and find him and apologize for everything she had done to him. Wiping her eyes with her hand and hardening her resolve to fix things, Sakura stood up and prepared to meet with Kakashi to have him train her so that she can bring Naruto home. The ninja stared on at the gaping hole in the center of the corpse that laid before him, staring at it as it was where the chest was supposed to be at. This was one of the bodies that had recently been found a few days ago. Bandits that had attacked a target only to find out their foe was far more powerful than they had estimated and they had been killed. This is work of the Chidori, Kakashi said looking on as he had deciphered the wound and what had caused it. Only it could do such piercing damage to a person's body. He noted as he had seen enough and covered the body back up with a sheet. Before there was only one other person who I'd believe could do it, but now. He had told Naruto that it was impossible for him to learn the Chidori as the glaring weakness it had made it impractical unless you possessed a Sharingan. But it seems that you refused to believe you couldn't learn it and managed to do so after all. Kakashi said as he thought of the missing ninja. The boy having not been seen by anyone, not since Sasuke left as well. If you have found a way to master it Naruto, then you are now much more dangerous than I had believed. He said to himself. He remembered Naruto's angry words. His voice filled with hatred and sorrow from their last encounter. I'm leaving. And on the day I do come back, I will kill whoever is Hokage at that time and take the title for myself, even if by some chance it's you. Naruto, the anger and rage has consumed you. There is nothing left I fear of who you once was. Kakashi lamented. Lady Hokage, you have to train me. Sakura pleaded with the god aim. Please, I want to get stronger. Tsunade looked on at the girl standing before her who had arrived. Sakura, there are many who are more capable of training you than I. I have to get stronger Lady Hokage. Sakura repeated. Kakashi's a mess, I can't rely on him. Please, you were the Sandaime student, one of the 3 legendary ninjas. Let me train under you. Sakura begged her. Tsunade stared into the girl's green eyes. If by some chance I do agree to train you, why should I believe you won't call it quits after a week? She asked. I won't, Sakura vowed to them. I promise I'll be the best student ever and won't let you down. The reason you want me to train you is because of Naruto, isn't it? Tsunade questioned and Sakura said nothing, but that was enough for her. You wish to save him. I have to do this Tsunade, Sakura said to them. I'm the only one who can. If I can get stronger, I can bring him home and help heal him. There's no one else who can, not since Iruka isn't here anymore. She said and her voice lowered. Iruka? Tsunade repeated catching the name. I feel that if Iruka had been here when he saw me. Sakura explained to her. He would have been able to talk and calm Naruto down and help him. To make it so that Naruto wouldn't have left. Hold on, Tsunade said stopping her. From what I had gathered and been told, Iruka Yamino was a teacher at the academy. He was a solid if unspectacular ninja, which is why he became a teacher as he felt he was more used teaching the next generation. She said and Sakura nodded her head. Everyone in our class liked Iruka. He was always supportive of us and willing to explain and help us. Sakura said with a sad smile. Sounds like he was someone you were all fond of. Tsunade said. Especially to Naruto, to him, Iruka wasn't just some teacher. He was the closest, if not the only friend Naruto had. They were often seen together as Iruka was the only one who would take time to help him. Sakura explained and Tsunade nodded her head beginning to understand as a flashback began. The skies had began to turn gray and raindrops began to fall from the sky down onto the village as Naruto stumbled and made his way through the war-torn village after the attack that had happened. Iruka-san. Where are you? He called out to the chunin, but he hadn't been able to find him. He had looked everywhere but couldn't find him. Iruka. During the attack, the traitor Mizuki had appeared, having sprung out of prison during the chaos and attacked both him and Iruka as revenge. Iruka had been wounded in the battle, but they had managed to defeat him. Naruto was concerned for him, but Iruka had told him he would be fine and to go help others, which Naruto had reluctantly did so. After winning against Gaara and driving off the invasion, Naruto then remembered him and went to look for him, but thus far he had not been able to find him. He had asked people if they had seen him, but he had received no help as there was countless injured from what had happened. He continued to look for him, but despite his efforts was unable to. An hour of searching had passed when Naruto then approached the academy, the one place he hadn't looked. Naruto looked around and saw the swing set that he always went to after class. As he looked, he saw a figure seated against it resting his back on it. Iruka. He called out with a smile as he saw it was him and headed towards them. Iruka however didn't respond to him, which confused Naruto as he sat there with his head down. Iruka. It's me. Naruto called out to him, but he still didn't respond to him. Looking on at the scene, Naruto approached him. Oh no, Naruto said, looking on at him as fear began to grip him. Iruka-san. Iruka. He called out to him, but there was no response coming from. Naruto stepped forward to his body, seeing how his eyes were shut. A calm, serene look on his face as he sat beside the swing set as he was at peace. Iruka. Iruka-san. Naruto called out, dread filling his body. He stood over his body and looked on at how he wasn't moving or answering. What did they do to you, Iruka? Naruto said as the realization was coming to him as Iruka still wasn't responding to him. Nor would he ever. It just isn't fair. He cried as he looked on as rain drenched both him and Iruka. You were going to see me become Hokage. He told him, pleading for him to wake up. You can't leave me. You were my best friend. You meant everything to me. Naruto said as tears poured down his cheeks as he fell to his knees. Everything. He declared as Iruka was the only person who he could ever call family. To have ever believed in him. Now he was truly alone. Iruka. Naruto shouted, throwing his head back as he yelled up to the heavens, as screams of sorrow filled the air, as tears fell down his face, as his cries of despair could be heard. Iruka died of his wounds he had sustained in the attack that day. He told Naruto not to worry about him, as he didn't want him to know that his injuries were too severe and worry about him. Sakura explained as she wiped a tear from her eye, and Tsunade gave her a sorrowful look as she was now fully understanding. I think in his last minutes he wanted to go to the swing set where Naruto would go to after classes, because that was where they had first met and spent their time together. He didn't want Naruto to feel bad about him dying and that it wasn't his fault. His funeral was held shortly afterwards, and despite wanting to be there with Naruto for it, I was made to go to the Sandames with everyone else. Another flashback was shown as Naruto was seen clad in his funeral clothes looking on at the headstone over Iruka's gravesite. He was the sole person there as everyone else in the village was at Sarutobi's funeral. Naruto hadn't gone there. He had refused as Iruka had meant more to him. He solemnly looked on as his throat was sore from sobbing the past couple of days, as tears were seen welling up in his eyes again, as he had no end to them. It felt like. His heart, it felt like, had been stabbed and pierced from all sides. The pain just wouldn't go away, no matter how much he slept or tried to ignore it. Naruto barely went to Ichiraku's or ate ramen from that point on. As it reminded him too much of Iruka and the pain he had felt. He also became more clingy to and protective of me, I noticed. He tried to act like he was fine, but it was obvious he was hurting. Sakura continued on. I know this sounds harsh, but I hope that bastard Mizuki is being tortured in hell for what he's done. She said as anger was in her eyes as the traitor had paid for what he'd done with his life. Tsunade nodded, whilst normally she wouldn't condone such words. She was willing to make an exception for this time. I think I can explain why Naruto was so attached to you. Tsunade said. He latched onto you as a replacement for Iruka after his passing. After him, you were the precious person he cared the most for and was fearful that he'd lose you as well. In his eyes you were the last thing he had that was worth living for. Tsunade explained and Sakura nodded in understanding. More than once she thought she had seen him or a bushing of his watching her from afar. She realized he was guarding her to make sure nothing was gonna happen. After you became Hokage and some time passed, Naruto started to return to normal. Acting like his usual self, it looked like he was recovering from Iruka's passing. He was smiling more often. A real actual smile, not a fake one that he had put on, and his eyes no longer had sadness in them. And because of my stupidity, I drove Naruto away. Sakura said to Tsunade bitterly. If I hadn't acted so foolish with Sasuke, he'd still be here. When he saw us and how I acted and what he thought was happening, it broke what was left of his heart. She told Tsunade as she couldn't believe how she had acted with Sasuke. Begging him to take her with him, right in front of Naruto. The poor boy. Tsunade said, shaking her head. He's been through so much in such a short amount of time. He just couldn't take it anymore. Especially with what he has put up with for the last 12 years. She said, and Sakura looked on, not understanding. I'm sure you've noticed that Naruto at times has received looks of scorn, right? Yeah, but I just thought that because of his prankster habits that annoyed people was the reason why. It's far more than playing tricks that caused him to be ostracized. Tsunade said as she knew there was no other way around this. Sakura, there's something you should know. It's about Naruto, and the risk of telling you this means that your life would be in grave danger, as this is an S-class secret regarding him. Tsunade told her, and Sakura looked on, not understanding. Have you ever heard the Kyuubi? Tsunade asked her, and Sakura shook her head no. I figured as much as you weren't born until afterwards, and no one would want to tell you growing up as the wounds were still fresh in people's minds. Sakura, the Kyuubi is a massive demon fox with 9 tails of unparalleled power, who could with a swipe of its paw, create a tornado that would wipe out an entire forest. It is a horrendous creature that seeks nothing but destruction. She told Sakura. But I thought stories like that were just tales to scare little kids. Sakura replied and Tsunade shook her head. No, Sakura, the Kyuubi is as real as you and I. She grimly told her. It is real, one of 9-tailed beasts to be exact that exist. They are terrible creatures of awesome power that you are to flee on sight. I don't understand what this has to do with Naruto. Sakura said to her. I'm getting there. Years ago, the Kyuubi attacked the leaf. It appeared and waged destruction and chaos. Hundreds perished and thousands more were injured. Tsunade informed her. Do you know why there is a festival every year on October 10th? It was to celebrate and honor the Yandame's legacy. You mean to say he defeated the Kyuubi? Sakura asked, but Tsunade shook her head. Now that she thought about it, that was also Naruto's birthday. No Sakura, he did not. The tailed beast is a foe beyond even S-class ninjas, even cages. Nothing the Yandame could do could even pierce its hide or hurt it. Then how did he defeat it? He didn't, there was only one way to defeat Kyuubi or any other type of tailed beast. Tsunade stated to her. The demon had to be sealed away, it was the only thing he could do so to save Konoha. But the only way to seal a demon is to do so by placing it inside a human, but only young children are capable of undergoing the process. That day, a newborn baby had been born. The Yandame took the child and, doing at the expense of his own life, used a jutsu that sealed Kyuubi into the child, saving Konoha which was on the verge of destruction. That's horrible. Sakura said with a stunned look on her face at what she was told. You mean that one of the Leaf's greatest heroes sacrificed a baby? She asked and Tsunade grimly nodded. The child survived the sealing process and became the vessel for the 9-tailed fox. What is known as a jinchuriki. He grew up amongst the villagers, hated and looked at with distrust and scorn, believing him to be Kyuubi and the one responsible for all that had happened as he contained the beast inside. He discovered that he was one when he became a genin. But it wasn't his fault. How could the village possibly act like that to an innocent child? Sakura protested, shocked that the village would act in such a way to a child. He hadn't done anything to anyone. I've never seen this child. She said a bit surprised. Let me continue, one who has one of the tailed beasts sealed into them can tap into their power and use them. Gaara, the Kazekage is one as well. She told Sakura and her eyes widened in shock as she remembered him from the exams. You see Sakura, many villages, even the 5 great ones, sought to use the tailed beasts as weapons to empower their own forces. But they are often feared and hated even by their own villagers and fellow ninja because of the risk of the demon taking control. With the days of so many that day, many were looking for one responsible for it, so in their eyes, the child was the one who had done it all. Sakura Tsunade said to her. The jinchuriki of the Kyuubi is someone whom you know better than anyone. She was told and Sakura looked on at her confused, not understanding. Have you ever stopped and noticed the markings on Naruto's face? She asked her and Sakura thought it over. She had never really paid it attention, as there was those like the Inuzukas and Akimichis who had facial markings. Now that she thought about it, the scars on Naruto's face was similar in the pattern. They looked like whiskers when she thought it over. Almost like that of a fox. No. Sakura shouted as tears formed in her eyes as the realization dawned on her just now as the puzzle pieces were coming together. Please don't tell me that Naruto is the vessel. She pleaded with Tsunade who could only look on at her sadly. I am sorry Sakura. Naruto is the jinchuriki of the 9-tailed fox. All this time we treated him badly. Treated him so wrongly. And for something he didn't do. Sakura shouted as she fell to her knees, her hands dropping to the ground as Tsunade could only look on at them as Sakura sniffled and cried, her tears falling onto the floor. Sakura continued to weep, her cries filling the room as the truth was now revealed to her. Her teammate, the boy who was in love with her, had been forced with no say in the matter to be the burden of a terrible curse and thus never knowing why he was hated. He had been treated terribly by others in the village for something he didn't even do. And worst of all, she had been one of those who had done it. How could he? Sakura asked. How could the Yandame do something so terrible? She said, her voice and eyes filled with anger as she raised her head up. To an innocent baby. A baby who never got a choice in the matter. And to let and have people treat him the way they did. Where were Naruto's parents? His family. He must have had someone who he was related to or knew his family. She demanded and Tsunade winced. All this time we were told that the Yandame was this great hero who we should all aspire to be like, when in the end he was a coward. Sakura said, her voice cold. What kind of person does that to another? she said, and Tsunade wondered how she would react if she knew the whole truth of the matter, as she had only told her half of it. Sakura, Tsunade said. I don't condone his actions, but all of Konoha would have been wiped out and everyone killed if he hadn't. She told her. Sometimes to save thousands one life must be sacrificed in exchange. That still doesn't mean it was the right thing to do. And the Sandaime, he did nothing for Naruto. He made no laws or anything that could have prevented people from treating Naruto the way they did. He just stood there and let him treat him that way. Did he not even care that Naruto looked up to him? There are some things even a Hokage can't do, Sakura. Tsunade somberly said. Sarutobi could have done much more, I agree with you though. He believed that by not letting the next generation know about him, Naruto would be able to make friends with children his age, but the hatred of those who lost during the Kyuubi attack was much stronger than even he thought. What are we going to do? Sakura asked somberly. What can we do to help him? She asked as it was a question in which there seemed to be no answer. Tsunade stood up from her desk and walked over to her and kneeling placed her arms on their shoulders. We're going to work together, Tsunade promised her as she comforted her. We'll bring Naruto home and fix all of this. I swear to you. She said to her as she lifted her back up to her feet. Dry your tears, Sakura, she ordered her, and Sakura nodded as she wiped them off her face. Starting this very minute, you are hereby my apprentice. She told her, and Sakura nodded, her head filled with renewed determination. Naruto took a heavy swig of his canteen, letting the cool water go down his throat as he was shown at a stream. He drank the water as he placed the canteen against his lips before dipping it into the water and refilling it and placed a lid on it. Around his back was his Naginata as he looked on at the flowing water, an emotionless look on his face. A somber sigh escaped his mouth as he shut his eyes. A lone tear fell down his face as an image appeared in his mind of a beloved figure who he dearly missed. Anger then replaced the sorrow in him as he gritted his teeth as his eyes opened with fury in them. Just another one of Konoha's lies they had given him. Naruto then prepared to leave. As he did, Naruto noticed something out of the corner of his eye in the water that had caught his attention. Getting closer, he saw what it was. It was a pair of swords. Swords that were of medium length and slimly built. Their most noticeable factor was that on the side of them were a pair of prongs near the top and bottom of them. Naruto recognized them, they were the Kiba blades, formerly wielded by Raiga Kurasuke, one of the 7 mist swordsmen who Naruto had done battle against. Capable of generating lightning from them, they were that had made Raiga a dangerous foe. Never thought I'd see them again. Naruto said in surprise. When Raiga had died in battle, the Kiba blades had fallen into the river and been lost. Apparently they had been washed away and floated downstream until coming to this place. Naruto looked on at the twin swords, as he stared at them he felt as though they were calling to him, as though they were tempting him to take hold. He continued to stare at the swords as they. Reaching into the water, he grasped hold of them. A jolt of electricity shot into him upon contact with the hilts of the swords, coursing through his body. He hissed in pain as he felt a searing burn on his hands as lightning shot through him. The blades, still possessing their former master's sorrow and rage, were testing him, he realized as he remembered that Samehada had only allowed its own master to touch it. They weren't going to accept him if he was not worthy, he now knew. He grasped onto them, holding on despite the pain coursing through him. Lightning appeared all around the area as he refused to let go of them. In defiance he held onto them as he would not succumb to their challenge. What good did they expect pain to do to him? The pain was nothing to what he had experienced as of late. They could unleash pain tenfold and still he would not yield or give up. With a howl he pulled them up out of the water and hoisted the blades as the lightning and shocking had stopped. As they were no longer hurting him, he had realized. He had been accepted, they had deemed him worthy to wield them. Naruto clanged the twin swords together as he held them up above his head and lightning shot out from the tips above him as he held, as the blades had accepted him as their new master. As Naruto held them, he suddenly heard a sharp intake of breath. Moving fast, he got out of the way just in the nick of time as a dart flew past him, just missing his neck. Turning around in a fury, he looked and saw a group of 3 in the trees. Naruto looked on at them. They wore masks that designated them as Anbu, but were clad differently than the Anbu he had seen before, as their outfits were all black. One had a blowgun from which he had fired the dart that had missed Naruto, which he realized was meant to knock him out. Take him. One said, and they all leapt at him as they attacked as Naruto gritted his teeth. He stood his ground as they encircled him, cutting off any path of escape. One moved first as he threw several knives at Naruto. Naruto moved of the way and saw the weapons be retracted via wires to him, and he threw more knives at him with his other hand as he had wires attached to him to bring them back to him. Naruto dodged and avoided the attacks as they were swiftly tossed at him. Another wore gloved hands that had needles sticking out of them as Naruto realized it was likely a type of poison that was on them. The third and last Anbu had brought out a scroll and had summoned several buzzards. The ninjas then attacked him with their tools and weapons. The birds were the first to attack, flying at him, preparing to assault him with their talons and beaks as they darted and flew around him before attacking as he brought his arms up to defend himself. He felt something coming at him and moved in the nick of time as a knife almost got him in the leg. He then ducked as the glove-wearing one nearly got him, just missing him with his needles. It was a three-pronged attack, the birds were a diversion, the knives were to incapacitate him, and the poison was to take him out. The needle-handed one attacked Naruto, as just one touch of the poisoned needles would be enough to immobilize him. Attacking fast and from all angles, not giving Naruto a moment to attack back. He then leapt to the side that the knife thrower could attack as he flung his knives at them. Naruto deflected the knives with his swords as the thrown weapons were pulled back on the wires to their wielder. They attacked again, and Naruto knew that he couldn't press his luck, as eventually like this, they would get him no matter how he tried to defend himself. He needed to go on the offensive if he wanted to survive. Naruto brought the Kiba blades together and clanged them against one another, creating a bright flash to stun them. Bringing the prongs on them together, he then channeled a thunderball and fired it at them. The buzzards caught in pain as they were destroyed, ridding him of them. Having dealt with them, he was about to attack when he suddenly felt something grabbing him by the leg. Looking down, he saw one of the Anbu emerging from the ground. Naruto was grasped by the foot and before he could react was pulled down and found himself up to his neck in the dirt, having been pulled under and submerged. He recognized this trick. This was one of Kakashi's jutsus he had used on him. Trapping him underground, leaving only his head exposed. "Now we shall take you," one told him as their orders were to bring him alive. The three ninja had regrouped and seemed satisfied, believing that Naruto was trapped. Naruto growled loudly in fury as his eyes then turned red. The ground began to shake, much to the trio's alarm, as he pulled one arm out of the ground as he was breaking free of his imprisonment. "Damn. Knock him out." One produced a kanabo and ran over to slam it against his head to knock him out, but was too late as Naruto powered out of it, sending dirt and debris everywhere as a red aura was surrounding him. The Anbu swung his club at his stomach to crack his ribs, but to his surprise Naruto disappeared, replaced by a log. The blade then pierced through his chest from behind. He didn't have time to even gasp as the blade was pulled out and then slashed across the back as Naruto was revealed behind him with his Naginata having switched the swords for it. One of the remaining two threw his knives at him. Naruto sidestepped the weapons and grasped the wires before he could retract them. The Anbu fought against him, trying to get them back, but Naruto, drawing on the fox's power, was too strong as he overpowered him. Desperately he threw the other knives he wielded, but Naruto dodged and caught the wires as well. With a great tug he pulled him towards him as the man stumbled, and Naruto used his momentum to toss him overhead and into the stream, falling into the water. He emerged from it and tried to make it to the shore to get back in the fight. Naruto was faster as he fired lightning directly at the water from the Kiba blades, and the ninja was electrocuted and fell over dead. Before the lone remaining Anbu could try to fight him or retreat, he charged at him and raising his fist slugged him across the face, knocking him off his feet. The man's mask was knocked off from the force of it, exposing his features as he hit the ground. "Who sent you?" Naruto demanded as he stood over him. When the man didn't respond, Naruto pressed his swords against his throat. "Answer me," he snarled angrily. "I can't tell you," the Anbu replied. "Wrong answer," Naruto said and made a thin cut across his throat, just enough to draw blood. "Tell me now. You know what they'll do to me if I tell you? You know what I'm going to do if you don't?" Naruto countered as his eyes turned blood red and his teeth turned to fangs. The blades cut closer to the ninja's neck as they drew more blood. "I can tell that you value living more than you do dying for your master, so unless you want to die, tell me now," Naruto demanded. When the ninja refused to respond, Naruto opted for a more direct approach as sparks flew from the Kiba blades and began to shock him. "The pain stops when you tell me what I want to know. Who sent you? Name the bastard who sent you," he demanded, cruelty in his eyes. The man still refused and Naruto snarled and continued electrocuting him. The man tried to keep silent, but his endurance was starting to break. 2 weeks ago he never would have thought of torturing another in such a way, but he was past the point of caring how he hurt others. Why should he, given how the world had hurt him? The ninja's silence broke and he began to shout in pain as he was being electrocuting, searing his flesh and body, but Naruto ignored his cries of agony as he mercilessly shocked him. "The longer you refuse to talk, the longer this lasts," Naruto told him. It wasn't enough to kill him, but enough to put him in pain and agony. "I'll talk," the man shouted after several minutes. "Tell me. Who sent you? Lord Ah." Just as the man began to speak, he let out a choking sound and blood shot out of his mouth, catching Naruto off guard. His body jerked and twisted as blood spewed out of his mouth for several seconds. Naruto looked on and saw his lifeless eyes as he realized that he was now dead. Using his swords to pry his mouth open, he looked and discovered that there was a seal on his tongue that was glowing. Apparently when he went to say the name it had activated and made the man choke on his own blood until he died. Giving the corpse of him or the others no more mind, he put the blades away and turned and started to walk away. As he walked, he was unaware of someone spying on him. The figure had looked on with moderate interest in his battle. Seeing that his rage was making him tap into the fox's power and use it. His eyes glowing as he looked on at Naruto, he prepared to make his move. What if Naruto had enough of Kakashi chunin exams, and thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part. Comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys next video.